All right, Mayor, I believe we're on.
Yep.
Okay, welcome everyone. This meeting is being called to order in accordance with the Public Meetings Act. Council President Phil George, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Thank you, Mayor. Salute. I pledge allegiance to the
flag of the
of
United States of
America
America
and to
and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
under God,
Indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty
and justice
all.
for all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mayor Brill Mittler.
Here.
Councilman Fine.
Here.
Councilwoman Foster-Dublin.
Here.
Councilman George.
Here.
Councilman Hale.
Here.
Councilwoman Chohan.
Here.
Councilwoman Welkowitz. Borough Attorney Schmier.
Here.
Borough Administrator Jover.
Here.
Okay. Before we go any further, I'd like to welcome everyone to our second annual second virtual council meeting. For those of you tuning in through our computers or phones, I thank you for working with us as we explore new ways to do the borough's business. For those of you with a computer or smartphone, you can find a copy of the agenda on our website at hpboro.com. From the home page, scroll down to the calendar and click on April 7th, council meeting. The link to the agenda is at the bottom of the page. A recording of these proceedings will be made available through HPTV following the meeting. All right. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the regular and work session meetings of October 29th, 2019, November 12th, 2019, December 3rd, 2019, and December 17th, 2019, the adjourned meeting of January 7th, 2020, and the organization meeting of January 2nd, 2020 as distributed.
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call, please. Joan?
Councilman Fine.
Yes.
Okay. Councilwoman Foster-Dublin.
Yes.
Councilman George.
Abstain as to November 12, yes to the rest.
Councilman Hale.
Yes.
Councilwoman Chohan.
Councilwoman Chohan, did you vote?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go on to council reports at this time. Given the nature of this meeting, I've asked each of the council members to keep their reports to a minimum of new and important information. And so I'm going to start tonight with Councilman Fine.
I have a very short message, Madam Mayor, and that's just that I want to wish everyone who's celebrating a holiday this month a healthy, safe, and peaceful holiday. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Chohan?
Yes, I do have some brief announcements. The Highland, regards to HP Gives a Hoot, the Highland Park schools will be providing food for the students during the scheduled spring break. And announcements from the food pantry. Unbelievable generosity of the HP community in both donations and folks interested in volunteering. The food pantry received a donation of $1,300 in Target gift cards from Highland Park High School teacher, Adam Golds, the HP Model UN Congress Club. So many thanks to them. And also many thanks for the support of the community center staff, Kimberly McGraw, Nicole Huff, and Maria Austin, plus the DPW staff for helping move food products, and the police department for assisting with safety for our clients and volunteers doing the food distributions. And also, to keep up to date just with the food pantry and what's going on with everything changing on the day-to-day, you can visit their Facebook page, HP Food Pantry. And because of the COVID-19, they had to make some changes. They did remove the box out of Stop and Shop because there were many concerns about the food, and then also the volunteers with sorting the items as well. So we're trying to minimize the volunteers that have to go to the stores as well. The food pantry has came up, they're asking now for donations on an Amazon wish list that they have. You can go under, it's Amazon and then friends, and you can just type in Highland Park Food Pantry, and that will show you their wish list. Their link is also on their Facebook page. You can also purchase the Amazon gift cards or any gift cards that allow electronic delivery online, and the email can be sent to highlandparkfoodpantry@gmail.com. And those funds will be used as well. And then locally, you can also mail gift cards to Highland Park Food Pantry, 245 Valentine Street in Highland Park, New Jersey. And also, they're still also accepting monetary donations as well. And quick announcement with Board of Health. I know they've been working with the mayor on COVID-19 information that includes wellness advice and a document on testing and resources. And I also want to wish our community a peaceful Passover and Easter, and stay safe. That's my report.
Thank you very much. And the food pantry is doing a phenomenal job during this period. So please pass that on to the team there. Okay, Councilman Hale, do you have a report?
I do, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much. You know, as rightly, we're all focused on the public health concerns right now, and all of that the mayor will get into. But I do want to make a plug or a pitch or a plea for everyone in Highland Park to go to the Main Street Highland Park website. It's mainstreethp.org for a list of all of the Highland Park businesses that are open in some fashion. Many of the restaurants have curbside pickup or delivery options. Many of the stores have that as well. There's a number of them that are doing all that they can to stay in business. And I think it's really, really important that as a community, we come and make sure that we're supporting all of our businesses as best we can during this time. We're hearing report after report of business owners who are paying salaries for employees, even though there's no money coming in the door. And so anything that we can do to support those businesses would be very, very much appreciated. Someday we're going to get out of this, and we want to make sure that when we can walk down Raritan Avenue, there will be places to go. So it is a very dire situation for businesses, and it's very important for our community to do everything that we can to support those businesses. Rebecca Hirsch at Main Street, Highland Park, all of the Main Street folks have done a fantastic job at getting information out. But again, if people can take a look at mainstreethp.org for a list, they do their best to keep that up and running of what the different businesses are doing. But please do call ahead So it changes daily. Sometimes it changes hourly. So it's anything that you can do to support all of our local businesses, whether they're still food services or groceries, rather than going someplace farther away. We have our computer, both Cyber Night and Lynx are both up for computer repairs and phone repairs by appointment. So please make sure that you are doing all you can to support Highland Park businesses in this tough time. If you are a Highland Park business owner, again, I'm going to point you to that same site. There are a number of resources that are coming online, both state resources in the form of emergency grants, as well as SBA loans. And there is a process for getting those that started at the end of last week. They're mainly online processes. There is, again, at mainstreethp.org, a list of all of those potential resources, whether they're emergency grants, whether they're SBA loans, whether they're private charities. So all of those are up there. So if you are a business owner and you are hanging on, please take advantage of all of those resources and that they're available. There is quite a number of them. It's just a matter of signing up, doing your best to get through the paperwork. And again, there's a number of people in the community who volunteered to help with that process as best we can. So please take advantage of those resources. We're going to get through this from a public health standpoint. There is a lot of economic issues that are coming, and we have to make sure that when we are through this, that we are back to supporting HB businesses as best we can in all facets. So I'd like to just wish everybody who's celebrating Passover or Easter in the coming bit very, very happy celebrations, and stay safe. That's my report.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Foster-Dublin, do you have a report?
Yes, I do. The bulk of my report, the mayor is going to report on, because we meet every morning at 9 o'clock, and the public safety team, along with DPW and many others in the schools, we meet every morning. We go over what's new, what is the newest of the new, and the different community partners that we have that support us. The mayor will talk about that. But this morning we heard of one remarkable Highland Park person, and he has gone, I believe, above and beyond to get us N95 masks. He has provided us 500 masks so far, and he's hoping to provide us another 1,000 to 5,000 masks. So some incredible people have stepped up to the plate, and they're doing wonderful things to help our community. I must say that also that CERT has put together a committee called COPE. The mayor will go more into COPE and what it does, but it's one of these groups that it's awesome, the service that they're providing for residents that are shut in, people in our senior buildings and what have you. I'm going to leave the other stuff to the mayor. There's a lot of other moving parts, but I'm going to leave that to her to talk about. Trying to find the prettier things to talk about. There's one other thing that I would like to ask everyone, when they talk to their neighbors and Highland Park residents, what we have seen is that a lot of people are using their gloves and their masks, and when they're done with them, they just throw them out. They're proliferating everywhere. If people could just find a garbage can and throw them in. And Stop and Shop, we've put out extra garbage cans so they can dispose of their masks and their gloves and not just litter the streets with them. That could be a really, really good push. And the weather is getting much, much nicer. People want to go out. Everyone has cabin fever. And what people are doing, we're seeing a lot of people congregating in the parks, on the street, riding their bikes, playing games. And we're still in a pandemic, and everyone's safety is paramount. And if everyone can keep safety on the top of their forefront, then I think we'll all get through this unscathed, but we have to follow the guidelines that's out there. I do want to report that on the first aid squad, that there has been some changes. The Lowenstein family have all resigned from the squad. However, the squad continues to run. They resigned as of yesterday, and the roster is still there for persons who are going to move forward with keeping everything going. They had no problems last night. I did receive a list of the persons that are operating, are in leadership in the squad now, and they will continue to do the work that they need to do, and we'll closely monitor them. So at no time, the borough, or the borough residents, I should say, will be without service from the 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. and on the weekends. That's also, they will be there to provide that service at any time. Should there be any kind of hiccups in the system, we have Robert Wood Johnson. That would be the fallback system that everyone can use. But as of right now, everything is fine with the squad and they're moving forward. I will provide more detailed information and more updates in the upcoming weeks. Away from that, I just wish everyone to stay safe. It's really hard being inside, but follow the rules and we'll get through this. We're facing the religious holidays, and as we go through this time, keep everyone in your prayers and thoughts. That's my report.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Council President, do you have a report?
I do, Mayor, and I'll try and be brief. I and my family extend our wishes to all of you for your holidays, and also that we come through this crisis with a newfound respect for each other and how we are all connected. To my colleagues on council and administration, your efforts to keep us going are significant and contribute to our town's making it through day to day. Sticking to DPW works, the borough is closed for Good Friday this week, so the collection schedule for the south side is moved up a day. Recycling is tomorrow, that's Wednesday, April 8th, and trash will be collected on Thursday, April 9th. Next week, trash and recycling go back to the regular schedule. Please note that the borough website note for Hamet's disposal is not correct. It's the usual and old schedule, but because of COVID-19, DPW drop-off has been canceled, and the resulting volume of work and need for social distancing as well for DPW. I understand that the synagogues have made arrangements to have dumpsters available for Hamet's disposal, but DPW will help remove if you place your trash bags for disposal in your toter or trash can on the regular days. We have also seen almost double the volume of cardboard recycling as a result of the stay-at-home order, the closing of the restaurants, and as a result, everybody is buying in. If you notice, the streets are busy every day with deliveries from all of the online services, and it has doubled recycling. DPW asks that you be a little more careful with putting your cardboard together, either tie it or make sure it's boxed. With our nice spring breezes, the guys are working a lot harder to pick up all the recycling. The good part being recycling of cardboard is going up on the market, so that we'll actually be able to show some from that. Finally, we have determined that we need to cancel bulk trash pickup for May 6th and May 13th due to the uncertain status of current orders for social distancing and other controls. Bulk trash pickup involves more exposure than normal for our DPW crews. It also lasts several days during the week, not just the one day. And they are also, as a result of assisting with the borough's needs, they're performing daily disinfecting of the borough buildings. They're disinfecting the police cars regularly, and they also do weekly maintenance at the library. We don't know how long this will last, but we have to prioritize for their safety as well. So DPW will be unable to conduct bulk trash, but we will be announcing a date as soon as we have a more firm handle on when everything is released and when we can start to get back to normal. That's all. Please remember to wear your mask and gloves and maintain social distancing. As Councilwoman Foster-Dublin said, the spring weather is here, but it's deceptive. The virus doesn't give us a break just because the weather is nice. We have to keep paying attention. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman. I have a couple of questions on your report. The first is Recycle Coach has tomorrow for household garbage and Thursday for recycling on the south side.
That's correct. I had them switched. I made a mistake.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to make sure before.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it. I switched it. I made a mistake.
Okay. And then would you please make sure you get in touch with Harry Glazer so he can get the word out about the bulk trash before we have people starting to put stuff out?
Mayor, I spoke with him this afternoon
Great.
to go over the news that we put out, and he will have it hopefully tomorrow.
Okay, great. Can you all see me? Things just
Yes.
went crazy
blinked for
on
a
my
minute.
screen. Okay, thank you. Borough Administrator, do you have a report?
Yes, just a brief one, 2 items. The first was a pre-COVID-19 matter, an ongoing one. I just wanted to report that even through this, we've managed to make a little progress on the deer management question. I had a very productive Zoom meeting with the representatives from Middlesex County Parks Department, manager, Piscataway Township representative, as well as the 2 folks from the New Jersey Wildlife Division. We all got on a call to talk about how we work together and come up with a plan for deer management for our area, because it's really not, deer don't know the borders, as we all know. So my hope is to get some recommendations from DEP, waiting on a draft from them. And then hopefully when the dust settles from COVID-related social distancing, we can have that community forum that we've been wanting to do, or we may opt to do something virtually, but let's take it one step at a time. But I just wanted you to know that we've been pushing ahead on that, and it was a very productive phone call. And I was really pleased at how the various partners were really understanding the challenges Highland Park faces because of the deer and the limitations on what we can do. So that was encouraging, I must say. The other, on a more somber note, bills are due in May, and a question that we've been getting a lot, both in the tax office and my office, and I'm sure the members of the governing body have been getting, are, what can the borough do? Is there any flexibility, what have you, given what's going on? And all I can do is report that right now, the borough is not able to adjust our tax collection. That has to be authorized by the legislature and state government. Right now, that has not happened. If and when that happens, we'll have to evaluate what they've authorized and whether or not we can do, keeping in mind our cash flow needs and the needs of the schools. So, but we are very concerned about it. I know I'm not the only one on numerous calls and email threads where this is a very big concern. But right now, I just want to report that the bills are due on May 1st with the grace period, the 10-day grace period to May 10th. So I just wanted residents to be aware of that. And should that change, we will certainly get the word out widely. That's all I have.
Thank you, Borough Administrator. Okay, I have a bit of a report. As Councilwoman Foster-Dublin said, I want to bring you all up to speed on everything that's been going on with our team and task force regarding COVID-19. So you should know that the task force meets every morning at 9 a.m. We get updates from each department. Protocols for emergency responders and multifamily dwellings are discussed and in fact have been enacted. Thank you to Jim Polos and Scott Brescher for reaching out to all the management companies of the apartment complexes to ensure that they're following the proper protocols. We have ensured that all of our first responder groups in town and all employees in our borough buildings have face masks and gloves. Thank you to the administration also for keeping the borough working, although on a smaller and rotating staff. We did establish a new COPE program, and the Councilwoman was alluding to it before. I have to tell you, seeing what this group has done makes me so proud of all of our residents here in town. In just a few short days after the coronavirus outbreak was announced, so many of you reached out to us to ask how you can help. And that's when we stepped up and our CERT team came into action to supervise a group of volunteers that are providing meals, doing shopping, making phone calls to residents in need. As I said, the COPE team is coordinated by trained CERT members, and there are 76 volunteers. 76 of you have stepped up to help our neighbors. And of the 76, there are 60 residents that are being helped right now. And there's been great coordination between our COPE volunteers and the houses of worship that are doing their own programs. So everybody is working together, and it's really an amazing effort. It's just heartwarming, and this is what the Highland Park that I know is all about. So thank you to all of you. I also want to thank the police, the fire, the first aid, the CERT team, our OEM coordinator, Jim Polos, our public safety director, Pat Rinaldi, Councilwoman Elsie Foster-Dublin, our code enforcement team, the county health department, our borough administrator, community services team, our library director, and superintendent of schools, Scott Taylor. These folks, you should know, have been working 24/7 to ensure that everybody stays as healthy as possible, and that the steps that need to be taken to ensure that we will get through this crisis as safely and as quickly as possible are happening. Really, it's wonderful to see how our volunteers and our paid staff have pulled together to make life here in Highland Park, although very limited, as safe and rewarding as possible. Every morning I participate in the COVID-19 task force. I have calls nearly all day long with the county, the governor's office, our Congress and Senate representatives, and other government entities. We are making a concerted effort to make decisions in town based on the latest information from these reliable sources. Many of our residents have called or written me with questions about how to handle groceries, what scams there are out there, getting your stimulus check, obtaining unemployment assistance, and many other topics. I want to let you know that our skilled and seasoned librarians at the public library in Highland Park, our library, have answers for you. They have pulled together to do research and answer all your questions. You can reach out to them by email with questions at highlandparklib@gmail.com or by phone at 732-819-3781. And they are willing and able to help you get answers to all of your questions. Today, Governor Murphy closed all county parks. That includes all areas of Johnson Park and Donaldson Park. I'm sorry for the inconvenience and discouragement this may be to our residents, but it's what we must do now to flatten the curve. Please find new ways to get your exercise while staying at home. Walk up and down your stairs. Try jumping jacks. Yoga is great for inner strength and stretching. You can find free yoga lessons online or on Facebook or YouTube. If you have a backyard or a courtyard at your apartment complex, walk around, but stay close to home. And of course, wear a mask when you go outside and stay 6 feet apart. Simply put, stay home whenever possible. If you must go outside, keep 6 feet of distance from others and always wear a face mask. Wash your hands often. Do these things and we in Highland Park will get through this faster and stronger. I too want to wish all our residents who are celebrating holidays this week, happy holidays. Hopefully you'll be able to talk with your family that you probably are not going to have a chance to see over this holiday period. But wave outside your windows. We'll all be able to wave back at you. Finally, again, happy birthday to our council president, Phil George. May you have many more, Phil. Okay. It's now time for the first public discussion session. Total time for the session is 21 minutes, 3 minutes maximum per speaker. Comments are limited to items on the agenda. If you want to speak on an item that is not listed, there will be an opportunity to do so in the second open public comment session. The Borough Administrator, Terry, will monitor the time and indicate when 3 minutes have lapsed. Here is how we are going to handle this, given that we can't see you. If you would like to speak, please raise your hand by pressing *9 on your phone or keypad. Or if you are on a computer or smart device, select the raise hand button. Do we have any speakers?
I see one hand raised. It looks like it's Marlene Tarshish. Marlene, would you please state your name and your address and give your remarks? Marlene? All righty, I guess you dropped off.
No, I'm here.
Oh, you are here. Please.
I'm still here, 146 North 10th Avenue.
Mm-hmm. Go right ahead.
I was concerned that I did get the card about COVID precautions, but it was only in English. And I was wondering about any other educational efforts, whether we could use, and I'm not sure of the proper name for it, the police box, and any other way to discourage people from congregating. What can we do as individuals? And thank you for closing Donaldson and Johnson. There are people using the track at the Highland Park High School, so I am concerned about that.
So Marlene, I believe the chief is on the phone. I'm going to ask him to speak in a moment. But we had locked up the track and field at the high school. So Chief, do you want to speak to that and Marlene's other concerns? Chief? Chief, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. So as to the high school track, the track should be locked up. People are not supposed to be on the track. We are doing periodic patrols as staffing allows when there's free time for officers to drive by and then warn everybody off the track. We'll continue to do that. If there's that many people using it, we'll step the patrols up. This is the first I've heard of an increase in it since we locked it up, so we'll make sure to address that. What were the other concerns for the Donaldson and Johnson's Park? That the county's going to close those down. We're going to assist the county again with patrols. If they are not able to come through and they have a call that somebody's there, we will go down and investigate and stand by until the rangers can come down there to address the problem.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we have anybody else?
Last call. Anybody interested can. Looks like a last call. If you're interested in speaking, please raise your hand by pressing *9 or by the raise hand function in the webinar window. Mayor, I do not see any attendees that wish to speak at this time.
Okay, great. Let's move on then. Moving on to item 9 on the agenda. May I have a motion to adopt or reject a resolution to approve emergency temporary appropriations?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilman Fine,
Yes.
Councilwoman Foster-Dublin,
Yes.
Councilman George,
Yes.
Councilman Hale,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kim Chohan.
Yes.
Okay. Clerk, could you please report on advertising 433 Cleveland Avenue redevelopment plan for consideration of passage on the final reading by title?
Mayor, could I save us a second? And if I could entertain I'd like to make a motion to delay this until April 21st. Still need some time to work on this. So if we could, I'd like to make a motion to delay this until April 21st, I believe is the next council meeting.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, roll call to accept the motion to postpone this until the April 21st council meeting.
Councilman Fine,
Yes.
Councilwoman Foster-Dublin,
Yes.
Councilman George,
Yes.
Councilman Hale,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kim Chohan,
Yes.
Thank you.
Councilwoman, that's it.
All done?
Yep.
Okay. Clerk, could you please report on introduction of ordinance to amend the protection ordinance for consideration of passage on first reading by title?
An ordinance to replace Chapter 388 as the Code of the Borough of Highland Park concerning tree removal and protection has been introduced in writing by the Public Works and Public Utilities Committee for consideration of passage on first reading by title.
Okay, may I have a motion to adopt or reject and advertise the ordinance on first reading by title?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilman Fine,
Yes.
Councilwoman Foster-Dublin,
Yes.
Councilman George,
Our staff group did a great job reorganizing this. We have our first COVID-19 online meeting tomorrow. I vote yes.
Councilman Hale,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kim Chohan.
Yes.
Okay. Moving to the consent agenda now, may I have a motion to adopt items number 12 through 17 on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilman Fine,
Yes.
Councilwoman Foster-Dublin,
Yes.
Councilman George,
Yes.
Councilman Hale,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kim Chohan.
Yes.
Okay. May I have a motion to adopt or reject the resolution to approve the final payout for Police Officer Donald Newton?
Motion.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilman Fine,
Yes.
Councilwoman Foster-Dublin,
Yes.
Councilman George,
Yes.
Councilman Hale,
Yes.
Councilwoman Kim Chohan.
Yes.
Okay, it is now time for the second public discussion session. Each speaker has 3 minutes, but they may comment on any topic. The Borough Administrator again will monitor the time and indicate when 3 minutes have passed. This session will wrap up by 9 p.m. If you would like to speak, again, please raise your hand by pressing the *9 on your phone keypad, or if you are on a computer or smart device, select the raise hand button. The Borough Administrator will announce your turn by reading out your name or the last 4 digits of your phone number. Please begin by telling us your first name and last name, as well as your address. Again, if you would like to speak about a topic on the agenda or not, please press star 9 or the raise hand button now.
Mayor, I do not see any hands raised on the attendee list. Let me just double check. I do not see any comment at this time.
Okay. In that case, the next scheduled meeting is April 21st.
Elsie has her hand.
Elsie has something she'd like to say.
Who does?
Me.
Okay.
Okay. I have, like many of you have, I have been receiving emails. Everyone wants to do something to contribute in some kind of significant way. And this morning I received an email from someone saying, is there a way for the Borough of Highland Park to come together with unity and with hope by clapping healthcare workers, putting a display of a rainbow in the window, rainbow of hope, or doing some kind of display? She had suggested maybe an American flag, but that might not be, putting American flags in the window, that might not be something that folks in Highland Park wish to do, but having a rainbow of hope might be something. So it's something for us to consider, that we can show our solidarity for each other as we go through this. So I wanted us to bring it up here, and so we can start thinking about what can we do? Can we get some of the kids maybe at home to draw rainbow colors or do flags in the window or something?
So we're going into our work session now. So that would be a good time for us to talk about this, especially since we will have members of the school board and Superintendent Scott Taylor with us. So normally at this point, we would have a 5-minute break. But given that we're all sitting in our homes, I'd like to go right into the work session and ask that the board president Ann Gowan, board member Mark Krieger, and superintendent of schools Scott Taylor join us to talk about the school budget for the coming year. Welcome you all.
Hi, thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Scott, do we have you there? Yeah, Scott? Yes, okay, good, okay. So Gail, it's a pleasure to be here tonight, and we're so glad to be developing a working relationship with the council. I know that you and Darcy, Gail, had already had that going on, so I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for inviting us. So Gail, we had pictured this more as sort of an opportunity for the council to ask questions about our budget process in general. Were we correct about that, or did you have specific questions about this year's budget? I feel that we may have miscommunicated what the purpose was.
Well, I think it would be helpful for the council to, yes, hear and learn what the process is like. And then I'm not sure if the council members have any idea what the budget is for this coming year yet. If you want to talk about that, that's fine. But I think the budget process is a good way for us to start.
Okay.
We don't have the budget information right now, so it would be great on the process.
Okay. Mark, did you want to, Mark, you're there, yes?
Yes, I'm here.
Did you want to give a quick explanation of sort of the stages in which it moves and
Sure.
where we are in the process now?
Absolutely. And
Thank you.
and Scott could chime in, because Scott runs a lot of the budget process with his administrators. So in January, the administration starts having meetings to look at the different areas they're in and what the costs will be for the following year. We're certainly on a stringent controls, which means we top out our increase in budget at 2%. So we can't raise the taxes, local taxes by more than 2%. We also don't know what we're going to get from the state anywhere near in time to January. This year, it was widely reported we got over 100,000 from the state, or proposed 100,000 plus new state aid from the state. In fact, they also took $26,000 away from us. So the real number is close to 80,000, which is slightly under 2%. We also don't know what we're going to get or lose in federal aid. And the point is that the 2% increase in local taxes is, excuse me, typically every year less than 2% for the total budget between everything we get. So the budget process starts in January with the administration going over all the detailed lines. That means the principals, the business administrator, the BA, that's Linda Huffala, meet with Scott. They have large workbooks. I think I have one here. Yeah, this is 2016, 2017 workbook. So I have one of those for each of the past 5 years. By February and then March, the Board Finance Committee, which I've chaired for the last 4 years, meets with the administration. We go through every line in the budget. We look at what it was the year before, what we actually spent the last 2 years. We look at, and I mean every line in the budget. We look at what we'll be able to increase, what's gone up, what's gone down. We typically looking at the very small number of items that we have control over. And that is to say we have contracts for the staff, that's teachers, paraprofessionals, administrators. They're on union contracts. And so we know what that's going to cost us. That's about half our budget. We know what the medical will cost, or we have a pretty good idea, because the state tells us what kind of an increase to expect for the coming year. And we know what it's cost us in the previous year. And that's gone up almost every year for the last 10 years. It's almost, those numbers for the medical have almost doubled in the last 10 years. That comprises about 1/6 of our budget, the medical insurance. We review our current state of the special ed programs. So we have some in-house special ed programs, including a program which we work with Rutgers. We also have some special education classrooms, but we're a small district. We can't have a lot of those. In addition to that, though, we send a number of children out of district. So if we don't have a placement for a child, we will find a suitable placement either in another district or a special education school in consultation with parents, although parents typically by law have the first say on which choice to take. Some of those choices are very expensive. We had last year 40 children going out of district. The typical cost of a child going out of district is about $100,000. That's including tuition, that's including transportation, and it's including the summer programs. So that's extraordinarily expensive. That consists of probably 1/7 of our budget. So we're already up to 80% of our budget. We have utilities, we have food services. We're providing free and reduced lunches for 40% of our students. Highland Park School District, the community we're serving isn't a rich community. We have a maintenance contract with a maintenance company. Most school districts do that now. We have transportation costs. We have busing to a part of town where children can't walk. We have transportation for our programs, our after-school programs. And then we have supplies and books and computers and utilities. And when you take those and add them up, you know, the salaries, insurance, and special ed come to about 80%. The food services and maintenance bring it up to about 90%, probably over 90%. And then transportation, utilities, supplies, et cetera, bring it up to 100%. And we're allowed to raise the budget by 2%. And I can expand much more on that. The budget this year will go up to, we did an initial budget that went to the state. That was, Gail, your first question. That initial budget that went to the state increased our budget in all funds to about $37 million. About 30 million of that is coming from local tax levies. About 4 million, a little over 4 million is coming from the state. $1.5 million is coming from the federal government. I'm not sure of that number exactly. And then the rest is done by using any money that we didn't use this year. So when we have, we don't budget to the penny. If we're not left over with something, we could go out of business. So whatever's left over, we push forward, and that'll make up, comprise the rest. But about 30 million is raised from local tax levies. The 2% increase, because I guess of new tax, new properties that'll be taxed, that when we did the calculation, that looks like, believe it or not, a $7 increase in the tax on a average home in average house in Highland Park. 3 years ago, we had numbers like that, and if you look at your tax bills for that year, I think it was 2017-18, between the borough and the schools, my tax bill went down, and so did everyone else's. So with a $7 increase, it's not bad. That assumes the state's going to give us the full aid they put aside. That assumes we don't have to borrow money because there's not enough collections, depending on how the state resolves that issue. But there's not a lot of fat in the budget. So I hope that answered some questions, but I'm happy to take any questions you have. I've been on boards, as most of you know, for 30 years. This is my 6th term. I've chaired the finance committee virtually every year. I've become, that's my background, I've become kind of an expert in it. I'm also, again, vice president of the board. I was vice president many times in the past. So I know a lot about what's going on, and I know a lot about the budget.
And Mark, I think probably later you'll want to talk about some of the, I know you had a presentation of Darcy's concerning state funding. I'm not suggesting we give that now, but if people do have questions about why our state funding is not enough to prevent these tax increases, you could give specifics on that.
Yeah. If anyone has a question about that, I could certainly tell you how badly we've done, as most districts have.
Yeah.
And I testified with some of these papers in front of Senator Sweeney's committee about 18 months ago when we discussed the state funding, we discussed charter school costs, and and what's going on right now, which is the state educators' health insurance plan, which is being revamped and was supposed to save us fortunes, which is likely to cost us more than it's cost us in the past.
That's legislature that has not yet gone through, correct?
It hasn't gone through, but
right.
You
so
should
we're waiting.
Go ahead, Ann, I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. We're just waiting to find out what happens with that.
But you're insuring borough employees with the state health benefits plan. The public schools and community colleges fund our medical insurance through the state educators health benefit plan. They are two totally different plans. They have similar names and similar sub-plans. But if you have an employee who opts for the New Jersey Direct 15, our employees are allowed to take New Jersey Direct 10. Our cost for New Jersey Direct 10 for a family is $37,000 a year. That's what it's costing us. And that's the state plan. You're NJ Direct 15, and you can't give them new NJ Direct 10. There's no comparable plan like the NJ Direct 10 that we have to support. That's costing you approximately $27,000 a year. So those costs are extraordinary and really put a burden on the schools. I mean, that's among a whole paper that we testified about in front of the Senate. So I would love to have any questions about this.
Okay, so I have some questions, but I'm going to hold them till the council members have a chance to ask questions. Council members, if you have a question, please raise your hand. I know Matt Hale, you had a question.
So I just want to say thank you to Ann and Mark and Scott for coming. This is certainly the first time I'm on council to have you come to a council meeting. So I really do appreciate the communication, and thank you very much and Gail for making that happen. I think it's really important that we talk to each other about our budgets and that we have a good line of communication about what the borough is facing and what the board is facing as well, because it's all coming from taxpayers' money, and so I think that's really important. My question is is any of the budget process, and how is the budget process affected by the costs that you are facing, either positive or negative from COVID-19? I mean, is that factored in? How is that being factored in? Is there a process or a mechanism that you're using to factor those in?
Mark.
Yeah, so when we made the first cut at the budget and when we presented it to the state, so we had to present the budget to the state, an initial budget at March 19th. And we did not take into account the COVID-19, all the work that went behind it, which is months of work, didn't know about COVID-19, but we did have a deadline. And in fact, we had to have an unscheduled board meeting. I mean, it was scheduled in the fact that we advertised it and did all the proper steps, but it was an unintended board meeting. But the state put a burden on us of getting that budget in, pre-budget in early. The real budget isn't due until mid-May. So the one thing that the COVID-19 might do, and it's a long answer, I'll make a short answer, is we might save a few dollars in the short run, but we don't know yet. For instance, we don't know whether there is some state movement on a bill that will require us to pay transportation companies, even though we're not using them. So we might save money if we don't have to pay the transportation companies, but we don't know that yet. There's other savings we might get, but that also depends on the state, because the savings we might get, for instance, in food services and in a few other areas, might amount to, let's say, $100,000. There's every reason to believe the state aid isn't going to come up to the amounts they've told us. So we're thinking and planning for it to be a worse situation rather than a better situation. And we have, by the way, by law, we're only allowed to keep a 2% surplus. We have less than that now, but we don't have lots of surpluses. And so if we get lower state aid, or if, for instance, the borough can't give us our tax money in whatever it comes, I think it's May or June, if you don't collect enough and then we don't collect enough, you can go out and borrow it for us. So we can't borrow money against not getting our taxes. If the state gives us money late, we can borrow over the lateness, but it takes us about a month to fill out all the paperwork. So we're very, very, very concerned about the COVID-19, both the tax revenues, the state aid, the timing of it all, and the shortfalls of it. And the only thing we can do in those kinds of situations, if the situation turns to be really bad, which is the most likely outcome, and hopefully not the outcome, is it will mean larger class sizes and fewer teachers and paraprofessionals. In other words, reductions in force.
I think it's important to point out, this is probably obvious to everybody, that everybody is working right now. I mean, I believe it's probably the case that some of our employees have fewer hours, Scott, I would imagine, with paras right now. But our teachers are all fully, go ahead, Scott.
Well, no, all staff has been all hands on deck. Our paras are actually supporting teachers during the video conferences.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so yeah, our teachers are working as they always do. Those of you who have kids, if there's anybody here, knows Teachers are sending out curriculum. Teachers are having Zoom meetings with students. I believe the week of the 20th, we start having more frequent Zoom meetings, Scott. Counselors are reaching out to students. Child study team is reaching out to students. Staff are distributing lunches to our low, free and reduced lunch students and to other students in need who express a need for food. Any other?
I'd like to add one thing. About 18 months ago, we have a committee called the Central Leadership Team, and we have monthly meetings. This includes administrators, board members, teachers, union president, union reps, where we talk about the more serious problems the district has. And in one of those meetings, I made a presentation on both saving money and helping our students by leasing Chromebooks for every student from grade 6 through 12. And we did that. We last year probably saved over buying equipment for classrooms, replacing old equipment, putting new equipment on racks, etc. We did a 4-year lease deal where we were able to give every student in 6 through 12 a Chromebook and also give every teacher in every classroom a more modern laptop. So that saved us money, but also in this crisis, we have been able to, not only those students are able, 6 through 12, to have the Chromebook so they can do the Zoom and do the remote work, but we found Chromebooks that were in the classrooms to give to students from grades 2 through 5. So virtually every child in the district and every child who's capable, I think, of using a computer has got one. The other thing is that our director of STEM, Christina Nicosia, worked with one of the local phone companies to make available free Wi-Fi for families that didn't have Wi-Fi. Because that's the big downside. You give the student a Chromebook, but then they don't have Wi-Fi at home. But so now any family that doesn't have Wi-Fi in the district can have access to it through this company. So we've made a lot of movement on doing this, and some of it saved us money, but it also got us through this crisis, or is getting us through this crisis.
That's great.
So I'll just real quick and then turn it over to the mayor. I just as a substitute first grade teacher, I just want to say thank you very much to first grade teachers. It's a really tough job. So Dr. Taylor, if you could pass that on to any of your first grade teachers, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you.
I'll tell Principal McNally to pay it forward. Will do.
Thank you.
Any other council questions?
I do. You spoke about the budget and the numbers and what the potential increase may be to our residents this year. And I know that there's there are kids that attend school out of district. With that being said, is there any way, because the virus hit in us now and most people are doing remote learning from home, so the monies that we sent to those out of district, is there any way that can be recouped? Because it doesn't appear that the kids will be able to go back to school for the school year.
What do you know?
I can answer that question. Yeah, so that's a very valid question. I have an unfortunate answer, which is that no, we have not recouped anything from those districts that are housing our students out of district. They are professing, and I have no reason to believe otherwise, to provide them remote learning experiences just as we are, which is their validation for maintaining their tuition costs.
And we have contracts with them.
Right. I would say that the shoes on both feet or whatever. I mean, we have tuition paying students that come into Highland Park, some of whom would like to have a big discount now because they're only getting remote learning. We can't do that.
Another question as it pertains to that, I know it was brought up about the busing. So the students that are out of district are now not using the busing. So that's where the busing fee would be. Would we be able to get anything back on that? Or no,
Yes.
it's watch as well.
Go ahead,
Go ahead,
Scott.
Mark, you can answer. It looks like you're about to.
Yeah. So I believe that the busing that we're using internally for students on River Road, I think that's potentially recoupable, as is the busing that's for various sporting events that isn't on long-term contract. The busing that is contractual for students out of district, and typically special ed students, I'm not sure about. Scott, you might know.
Well, Elsie, in fact, we're investigating how we might be able to prorate what have been, in most cases, for students, yearly contracts, and then recoup some of those funds. We typically spend about $25,000 a student on transportation if that student is the only one riding a bus or a minivan to a particular school.
A special ed school, yeah.
And Mark, did you say there was a statute, or maybe it was Scott, proposed legislation that would have us pay busing fees even
Yes.
during COVID?
Yes, I've heard the discussion or rumor that there's a bill that may be winding its way through the legislature so that we would be mandated to pay buses that we're not using. I don't know any details of that yet. I know details of the two bills that are in some ways much more meaningful, and that is the medical insurance bill and the how do we get paid when there are shortfalls in tax revenue.
Fingers crossed on the busing bill.
Yeah.
So any other questions from council members? I just had a couple of questions, and I guess I would direct them to you, Mark.
Yes.
So the cost for sending children out of the district is $100,000 a child?
On average, if we send a child to a New Jersey sponsored public special education school, the cost of that school might be $40,000 plus transportation and summer school. So that might only be a number like 70. On the other hand, there are some private special education schools that are very loosely regulated by the state, where the charges, including transportation and summer, might cost as much as $130,000 or $140,000. On average, when I do the back of the envelope math, or Linda does, we assume a new child going out of district is going to cost us $100,000 or close to it.
And how does that compare to what it costs us per student for students who stay in district?
It's not really a one-to-one comparison. I mean, average student, state publishes some numbers. I think they're like 20,000, cost per student. Scott, do you know the exact number?
No, not the exact number, but you're close, Mark. We do have a few special needs students from other districts, and we assess a charge of between $25,000 to $30,000, depending on their specific needs. If they need occupational therapy, that might up the cost, but it's around $25,000 to $30,000.
But I think, Gail, you're asking about what does it cost for a student, just a regular student or a special ed student that we keep in-house?
Both, actually. My next question, my first question was going to be how much does it cost us per special ed student who stays here?
Ah, okay.
And I was going to ask how much does it cost us to educate a child in Highland Park?
Well, we have very few special education classes. Many special education students, though, do have a part-time or full-time paraprofessional assigned to them. So a paraprofessional, if a paraprofessional is like shared between two students, so the paraprofessional is full-time or is one-to-one with a student, that paraprofessional might cost us a salary of $20,000, but their medical benefits on average cost us $25,000. Because that's what our average cost for medical benefits for employees are. So we're talking about $45,000 or $50,000 if the child needs a paraprofessional. We are running one special education class for second, third, fourth graders at Bartle School with children who are have, let's call it severe needs, and who would cost us 3 or 4 children, it would cost us total $400,000 to send them out of district. They would be at the top of the scale, including 1 or 2 cases where we've been told you're going to need residential placement for them, and that might cost us $200,000.
Yeah.
So we're running that in-house with Rutgers. We have a program running with Rutgers. That's going to cost us well, that did cost us significantly less than the $400,000 plus sending those children out. But still, those children are costing us perhaps $80,000 each.
Wow.
So again, the answer is it depends, like everything.
And then in terms of what the cost is for an average student, not special needs.
Yeah, so we have 1,600 students, and we have perhaps 1,500 of them either not special needs, in-house or out of district. We have 30-something million, so it's over 20,000 per child on average.
Okay.
Yeah, that's about a good number. Mayor, may I share my screen? I have something I could show you that might illustrate how the costs have impacted us as we send students out of district. I do have that capability. May I do that?
Yeah.
This is a slide that I share in my presentation to the community to reflect the amazing increase in costs that the district has had to incur over time. Every year, we have increased our special education budget by between $1 to $1.5 million, mostly as a result of an influx of students, particularly at our early childhood school, Irving, with severe special needs. We can't determine why we're seeing these great numbers. Could be that we've developed a reputation in the last several years. Could be that more people are flocking to Highland Park. I just had a family move in from New Brunswick about a month ago, and one of the children in the family is already in an out-of-district placement, so we had to pick up that out-of-district placement cost. We never even saw the student.
Scott, I wanted to interrupt you here, though. We go to the New Jersey School Boards Association's annual meeting in October, which I hope happens this year. I hope we're done with this, or mostly done with this COVID-19. And most districts around the state are in the same boat. It's not just us, and it's not just people picking us. There was legislation that doctors and hospitals had to refer children with special needs to pre-K and in effect demand that the students get special services. And that's relatively new. And as that's come on board, we're seeing we had to open like a full new pre-K special ed classroom with, I think, mandated 5 students. And then we had to open another one, and then we had to open another one. One year we had as many, I think, as 3 classes. That requires a special ed teacher. It requires typically 2 paraprofessionals. And that's, it's the right thing to do, but it is the state of our society at this moment. We have lots more people who are identifying, and families who are identifying their children with special ed needs. There's a, well, I'll leave it at that. It's a terrific problem for all the districts. This year, we thought we had a little bit of breathing room. A couple of things went right. And then the special ed department, reminded us of the number of kids that went out of district during the year. So this year ending's budget will be okay. But next year's budget, we're going into the year with like 9 more children going out of district than we had last year. So it's a tremendous problem, and we have no control. The state barely pays us for this. The state, to keep it equal among districts. If you're unlucky enough if we were unlucky enough to get 20 families moving in with special ed needing out of district placement children, we would be laying off teachers in every grade. that we would have no control, we would have no help from the state. I have some of the numbers here, which are just astonishing. Our state aid in 2009 was 4.1 million. Our state aid in 2018 was 3.8 million. They're giving us less.
Right.
And our number of students has increased. Our number of special ed students are increased. The state's own formula for what should we get in this state aid, the formula, it was SFR, that was the law passed about 10, 15 years ago. The required state aid against that 3.8 million was 7.2 million. They're not giving us, to support this, what they said they would. And when I was on the school board 30 years ago, we didn't get a small percentage of our state aid. Oh, and part of that is special ed, part of it isn't. We used to get 60 and 70 and 80% of our special ed costs directly back from the state, so that it was passed around the different school systems in a much more fair basis. Someone moves from New Brunswick to Highland Park, we weren't penalized in such an enormous way. The child that moved in and that we're sending to an out-of-district school.
Let's not say too much about that child, of course.
No, I won't. It's just that we're going to read. I won't talk about a specific child,
right.
but the board is going to read a motion in 10 days, in 2 weeks, and the motion for someone who just moved in next year is going to cost us over $100,000. So the state has pretty much said you're on your own, and the numbers are astonishing. Health benefits in 2014-15 cost the district $4 million. 18-19, $6.2 million. They've gone up 50%. They're higher now, and they're going to be higher next year. We've already been told to expect a 6.5% increase.
I do want to say that this is probably already clear. It's not that we just do whatever parents tell us when a special need child comes into the district. I mean, obviously we have special ed staff and experts who are working with them. I mean, sometimes matters, go up to arbitration. I don't know how frequently, well, I do know how frequently. Occasionally we go up to litigation. So, it's not this kind of thing where we just sort of roll over and, do whatever the parent requests, but often there's no choice, realistically.
Well, clearly,
it almost doesn't matter, which of the three choices of schools that a parent says they think might be best. And that's what our special ed department might do. They might say each of these three schools will help your child, and they could pick one or another, and the differences might be very small, and typically are very small.
Financially.
It's very expensive.
Right.
Okay. Are there any other questions from the council? All right, seeing none. Anne, Mark, Scott, clearly we want to be able to help you work your way through the legislature on this. I am on the League of Municipalities.
Oh, wonderful.
Board. So let's stay in touch and let me know what I can do to help the situation with the legislature.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That would be wonderful. We actually, when Darcy was here, and hopefully she'll be back soon, she was very proactive about going to the legislature. It is not something that I have done at this point, and hopefully we can work together on that.
That would be great.
I did want to add that Senator Deignan has been a wonderful supporter of education.
Yes.
And so he's a go-to guy. And as we've learned things, he's really, what's coming up from the legislature, he's really helped us push an agenda that's very pro-education.
That's great. Now we need to get to more of them.
Yes, we do.
Okay,
yes.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate the time.
Bye.
Thank you.
Well, we appreciate the time.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay, council members. Terry, I have to tell you, I don't have the latest work agenda. What I have on my work agenda is the school board, Then you were going to talk about the revised 2020 budget timeline?
That's correct. And a quick water sewer RFP update. And that was all I have on the agenda.
Okay.
So since we're in talking numbers and budgets, I'm not going to get into the detail. I just wanted to update everybody on where we are in terms of the timeline. The state has granted an extension on the introduction of the budget, which we will be taking advantage of. This will also have the advantage of we can hopefully get some of our state aid numbers confirmed and some other information confirmed before we introduce. We think that would be helpful. That's the advice of Greg and Lori. So to meet our, we're going to have to introduce on the May 5th council meeting, and we would have to adopt on the June 9th council meeting, and we would be in compliance with the extension that was granted. What we had planned on doing before COVID-19, if you recall, was a workshop meeting. You've all been sitting on a bunch of very fascinating memos and spreadsheets, which you can continue to look at. I should mention that there will be some changes, not the least of which is we're creating a new line item in the budget, since we haven't introduced, called COVID-19, to make our expenditure tracking easier for future FEMA reimbursements. That was an idea that the CFO team came up with, which I think is going to be extremely helpful. It also keeps it from kind of pinging certain departments. Lori believes we have sufficient cushion in their surplus to offset that additional expense with money we have, so that it won't affect the tax rate. I just also caught a couple of mistakes, quote, like just some oversights that I need to tweak, nothing that really changes the pie. I will update those and get those to you, and I will be in touch with a date that hopefully works for everybody following Passover, holiday, etc., for a budget work. It would be similar to this in that it would be open to the public, but it would be a chance for you to ask me any specific questions or any specific council person questions about their own bucket areas. So with that, so we'll be looking to do that, in advance of the May 5th. At the introduction will be, I was planning on doing, assuming we're going to still be on Zoom meetings, I would like to do another presentation similar to last year, with the pie charts and the here's where your money goes in terms of municipal school, etc. And we can do a screen share just like Scott Taylor just did, where I can have a PowerPoint slide that I can move through, and then we can flip back and take questions that may happen from the public. If there are any amendments, we can make those amendments between the time we introduce and then the time that we go to adopt. So I think we're fine doing it that way. So any questions on that? That's my current thinking. And just so you know, Greg and or Lori will be at the workshop to answer any revenue related questions that you may have, as well as any technical questions I may not know the answer to. And they would also be at both public meetings as well.
And do we have,
Matthew, raise your hand.
Yeah, do we, the documents for that, I wasn't sure, did you say you had sent those, or you were
You've gotten them twice.
Great.
But I'm happy to resend, but I think I might want to just make my motto. If you haven't really invested the time in looking at it, I would just assume make the few tweaks I have to. The mistakes I found in one area I can offset elsewhere. So if you want to look at the first sheet of what I sent you, I don't imagine the total budget number to change at all based on the tweaks I'm making. But yes, I sent them out way before COVID, which seems like a whole million years ago. And I think I sent them out in advance of the workshop, and then we didn't have the workshop.
So I suggest you send them out again so they're at the top of everybody's email list.
Do you want me to do that even if amendments are coming?
No, send it after the tweaks.
Okay, I just assume that, Mayor, if it's
yes.
Sheet, which is usually the most important thing in everybody's minds, which is our budget compared, basing it on the estimates that Linda Hoffel at the schools gave me. So I know that's often kind of the most important sheet, and that shouldn't change. So I'll send that around immediately. And then the worksheets are what, and the summary of appropriate, I've made my updates, and then you'll have that as a separate. But this will, at least I think in the context of what you heard from the Board of Ed, it'll be a good, it'll fit in with that, and nothing should change on that sheet.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Terry on the budget?
Terry, so the amendments you're saying would be greater or will be less? What do you
Neutral. Neutral. So the overall, like, I'm going to make up a number. I don't have it in front of me. It's, let's say it's $6,300,000 is the budget number total all in. I'm going to keep that number. I have places where I can shift so that it's a neutral amendment to what I've sent previously. I don't want to increase the levy any further than where it is if I don't have to. So I think I have, the changes aren't so significant that I can't offset them somewhere else in the budget, is what I'm saying.
Okay, but there wouldn't be drop-offs for hourly staff members, seasonal staff?
Let me give you, we're getting, just so you all are aware, we doing our best. Everybody is paid for out of the municipal operating budget is still being paid. If they're hourly, that's based on the average of their typical hours, because it's not their fault that and for any, just so you know, personnel wise, if someone's out due a COVID-19 related a quarantine requirement, or they're sick with it, or a family member sick with it, and so they're self-quarantined with the family member, or their child, as many of us are, we have enabled remote working for everybody, number one. But the flip side of that is we are not charging their sick banks to stay home on COVID-related things. And so able to do that, because I think it takes a lot of stress off of people, and I certainly don't want people to show up sick because they don't want their sick bank to be impacted. So that's a decision that we made early based on guidance from the Civil Service Commission, and Rutgers actually did something similar. And I've let the employees know that that's the case until further notice. If this goes on and on and on and on, we may have to reevaluate that. We may not be able to afford that indefinitely. But for now, that's the decision that that's the policy we put into place. So the only hourly, Mayor, may I just say one thing? The only hourly positions that have not are those that are paid for out of the Recreation Trust. And those are directly related to programs that are now canceled. And there's no revenue to offset that. And I am very worried about depleting the Rec Trust too low, because we are also going to be refunding money that we had taken in for some programs in spring. And so what we did have to do was lay off 2 of our kind of regular part-timers that get paid for out of the rec, but they will have, as soon as we're back up and running, they have recall rights to the position, and they have that right for up to a year. So my hope is this is not a year away, this is sooner than later, but that is the only unfortunate kind of fallout, that just based on the fact that we may not have adequate revenue coming in to cover those salaries, I felt it was prudent. They also got a month notice, so it's not effective till May 1st.
Okay, what I was going to say is it looks like we lost Phil.
Oh, sorry, Mayor.
Phil?
Related or what?
Yeah, Phil dropped off a while ago.
I don't know.
Okay, so John, I don't know if you
carry forth. I don't know if you had. I know Stephanie had a hiccup with her internet. Mine's been a little spacey. It seemed I just went. The reason I left during the meeting, I told my son to get off the TV. I was like, I need all the bandwidth. So I don't know. We'll have to catch him up.
Okay, Terry, I have one more question.
Hold on to that thought for a second, Stephanie. Joan?
I'm texting Phil now.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know if we have to reflect in the minutes that Phil had dropped off.
I put a note and I'll just check with him to see when he got off the call because I didn't notice it.
Okay, Elsie's calling.
And Joan, this is being recorded, so you'll be able, when you do the look back, you can probably just fast forward and see when he dropped off.
Okay, I'll figure it out.
Thank you. Sorry, Stephanie, you had another question.
Yeah, Terry, are we coding, like, so, you know, a year from now, we can look back to see how many hours we paid staff members for COVID-19 because it wasn't sick days or vacation days or personal days. We have that coded, right?
Yes, and we work with Prime Point on that, our payroll company.
Okay.
Because that's also, like overtime, for example, is eligible if it's a police officer or whatever for reimbursement. There may be other things that come down the pike where just keeping our, you know, if we were a for-profit company, there are incentives out there if you keep people employed during this time. And just to be very clear, we're keeping folks busy. I mean, is everybody, you know, maxed out 100%, 35 hours a week? We're doing our best. Like the mayor mentioned in her report, the community services team, they've really picked up where they're really the backbone for that COPE group to be able to do the day-to-day management. They're kind of playing a critical administrative role with the food pantry as well, because their volunteer numbers have mentioned that Kate at the library mentioned, and it was very generous. She said, especially at the point if we see a problem with volunteers, a lot of her employees are residents, and they are very willing and able to help step up into other roles. And safe, of course. So we don't need that yet, but that's another thing we're looking to do. And if you've been watching the library, you can see they've been keeping as active as you can be given the circumstances. And that's what we're doing. Andrea just told me, for example, that the yoga or the Tai Chi, I forget, are going to do online classes that we'll make available, et cetera. So we're working on those kind of interim measures to keep people busy. While we're down.
I let me just add quickly that I neglected to say this. I thought the mayor was going to bring it up, but it's on both of us. That the community service team, Andrea and Kim, they are working tirelessly. They are the ones who, to minimize the spread of the virus, they have taken on triple roles. So they're spending time when they come in early or they may stay later to bag the food for the senior building next door. We've instituted a policy at the senior building next door that no visitors in or out. If someone wishes to drop off groceries, those groceries will be dropped off. There's a table will be set up and they can drop that off and they'll add the person's name to it. And then the staff at the Housing Authority will bring the food to the doors of the individuals. So Andrea and Kim have taken on an additional role of bagging all the food pantry requests that normally comes in. And they have, I think it's a handful, maybe it's like 5 volunteers at the most, because we're trying to reduce the cost of people getting infected, to go and prepare all these bagged foods and to make the deliveries. And the police department, Department of Public Works, they're also hands on board with making all of this happen and making sure distance is being followed. But now this week, they're going to be delivering to the building next door to make sure that everyone in that building who puts in a request, that need is met. So again, they're taking on an additional role. Even with the COPE that comes out of the CERT team, they are also playing a role with helping to identify people, say, in the building next door who need somebody to go shopping for them, food shopping. For seniors who need people to go food shopping, they get the list that's needed, making sure the money is there. And when the COPE people go food shopping for special needs for these folks, that they're making sure that they're keeping a roster of that, making sure that monies are returned and monies are collected appropriately. So they are now doing double overtime. And I think when you look at DPW, Department of Public Works are now going into the police department, the police cars, and they're doing special spray downs and what have you. They're also at the first aid squad doing the same thing, special scrubbing, municipal buildings, they're doing all of that. So even Department of Public Works, along with collecting our garbage and what have you, they have taken on extra responsibility. So the roles have changed, but the staff has taken on a lot more.
Yeah, I want to just add to, thank you for the reminder about that, Elsie. I just want to add and clarify one thing. It's just the Cronin building, not the AHEPA building that's participating in the food program. Kim and Andrea and their staffs have been calling every one of their regular visitors to check up on them. So, it's just been, as I said, in my report, it's just to see our employees and our volunteers working so hard together to make sure that everybody is taken care of has just been overwhelming.
And next door in the senior building, they have lost two persons. And, you can only imagine the drain and the scare and, the concerns. I've received calls where people are saying that they're really scared to be in the building because they know fellow tenants have passed on. And what can we do? And, you talk about the procedures that we have in place to make sure the food is there and everyone is protected as much as we can.
Also in the procedure.
A lot of moving parts are in place to make sure that everyone is relatively safe.
Part of those procedures are how to keep the building clean. So that's also happening on a regular basis in the Cronin building. Okay, Elsie, the last thing I have now, just Elsie, you brought up in the regular council meeting about things to do on a more positive basis.
Mayor, I had a water sewer update too on the agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't have that.
It was just getting so interesting, right? It's literally a very short update.
Okay.
But just wanted to make everybody aware, at the last meeting, you voted to reject the bids that we received and authorized reissuing the bids. We had learned through our interviews with the respondents where some of their concerns and where some of the risk they were perceiving to this contract were. So we tried to restructure the RFP to address those and to call out certain costs in different ways. So that has gone out. We have granted a 2-week extension at the request of one of the respondents due to the fact that COVID's happening. Although they should all be fairly familiar. We don't anticipate any new responses to the RFP, but you never know, it's possible. And I just didn't want to let the opportunity pass without just reminding you that's going on. I, of course, did not write down the new deadline for you, but we will certainly keep the Public Works Committee in the loop as well as the rest of council in the loop as they come in. But we have a few weeks out at this point before we will probably, I'm fairly certain the deadline is after the next council meeting. So I'll probably have more to report in May.
Thank you. So Elsie, to the point you raised about more positive things happening in town, I know Matt Hale and Rebecca Hirsch from Main Street have been talking about different things, and Josh's Art Commission has been talking about different things. I'm funneling all of these things to Harry so that he can coordinate all of this and any ideas. So if you have thoughts on something that you'd like to see done, please talk with Harry about them. And I know John Marin reached out to me today on some of the things that he wrote to you and me about. So if you want to get with him to make sure that they're moving along, please feel free to do so and just keep Harry in the loop.
Okay, will do. I'll send what I have over to him.
Okay.
This is not on the agenda, but it just came in the mail today to all of us.
Okay,
and it was,
wait, I don't know if we're allowed to talk about something on the agenda. I'll ask the borough attorney if it's not on the agenda. Can we?
I think we ought to carry it.
Okay. So Elsie, we're going to have to carry it.
COVID related though, stuff that people need. It's a system.
Well, but maybe we can get it out to them in a different form. I just don't, want to cause any problems with Oprah in this new format. Okay. If there's nothing else on the agenda, then may I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
Thank you all. And this seemed to go pretty well. Terry, fix your internet stuff there.
Happy religious weekend to all.